Welcome back to Big Brave Business on YouTube. We're here with another of our dear friends that we are so excited for you to meet. So go ahead, Dr. Cherie, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, ladies, for having me. I am Dr. Cherie. So I am the host of the Passionate Stewardship podcast. I am also a resistor of burnout. I am a lover of all things radical self-care. I am also very passionate about human services work, human service professionals and social workers and nonprofit organizations who do amazing work in this sometimes a very crazy and hectic world that we live in.
Basically Superwoman.
Well, I'll take it.
I mean, basically. Well, are you excited and ready to do your rapid fire questions?
I am. Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to start you off first. How many hours do you work in a week? Honestly, and there's no judgment.
Okay. I probably work about 60 hours a week.
Okay.
That's a lot.
You get a thumbs up from us. You get a thumbs up from us.
Though.
About 60 hours.
I already knew what question I wanted to ask you first, because if you didn't know this, if you don't listen to Cherie's podcast, she has a podcast called The Passionate Stewardship, and she has the best book recommendations. So I need to know, what is your favorite book of all time?
Oh, Sarah. Oh. So I'm looking up because some of my books are here. Some of them are in the living room. Some of them are there. I have bookshelves everywhere. So the first book that came to mind, it's called The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. It's one of his, it's a novel, but it's his first novel, and it's really, oh my God, I could give you so many. So but that is the first one. So I'm going to say The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. It was so good. It's so good.
That's a glowing recommendation. We'll have to try that one. Read that one. What were you like as a kid?
I was rebellious, but I was also the why kid growing up. There is a reason for everything. So it's why, which is partly why I'm full of questions now. My grandfather used to call me Jabberjaws. So, yeah. So I was the white kid growing up. Was rebellious, but I've always been, I grew up in the church, so I was always like giving in nature and always about community and, you know, always about caring for people. And I think I always feel people's hurt and pain and where they come from and always want to be present to someone else. And so I think I was even like that as a child. My grandfather said I should have been an attorney because I was always advocating for someone. I even advocated out of a spanking one time. It didn't work, but
didn't stop you from trying.
Nope. I love that. What time did you wake up this morning?
This morning, because I am technically supposed to be on vacation this week, I got up at 7:30.
That's pretty good. That's late for me too. I'm an early riser. Sarah, on the other hand, is like heading into her REM sleep cycle at 7 a.m.
Oh no, 7 is late.
I'm a big time early riser, so I feel you on that.
Yeah, I am too.
So what's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, I have so many. So probably my biggest pet peeve is respect. Always respect. Even when you feel you are being disrespected, always give respect. Even when you feel like the odds are stacked against you, always show up in a respectful space. Because respect is about you. Respect is about how you show up in the world. So I don't know, sometimes it can be hard, but I think respect is my biggest pet peeve. And a lot of times people will immediately go, you know, respect is one of those things that's fine. No, it really isn't. Because you can always show up in a space respectfully, regardless of how others are going to treat you. Because at the end of the day, it just makes them look like a dumbass. So,
No, trust me.
okay.
It's all welcome here, girl. It's all welcome here. And what a good lesson. I needed to hear that today. That's good. That's a good word for today. That's a good word for today. Show up and respect.
Okay, what are 3 things you're really good at?
Cooking. I love to cook. I'm kind of mean in the kitchen. I would say, and I say this because a lot of people say this about me, making people feel seen and heard. And third, I think I'm a pretty snazzy dresser.
I would agree with all 3 of those things. And I've just now got to meet you in person. But just from knowing your show and hearing from you, like, I could see all those things for sure.
I love the list. It's good. It's a good cross section.
I'm going to start telling people I'm mean in the kitchen. Do you have any pets? And if so, what are their names?
I do. So we have a 2-year-old American Staffordshire Terrier. His name is Max Chapman.
Ooh, I love that. So like, my dog's names are like Willow. Yours is like that's a sturdy name.
His name is Max. I said that he's Max from customer service. So whenever you're trying to get in touch with me, you can't. Because Max from customer service didn't relay the message.
He sounds like a distinguished gentleman.
Doesn't he? That's what I was trying to articulate.
Spoiled rotten boy. That's what he is.
Did you play any sports growing up? And if so, what was your biggest takeaway?
So I did not play sports growing up because the uniforms were a little too risque for my very spiritual upbringing. So I did not play sports growing up. I just wasn't that sports kind of girl. I was all about.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah.
If you could interview anyone, dead or alive, who would be one of your absolute dream interviews?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, God, there's too many people. Honestly, I would want to email. I would want to interview one of my ancestors. Not even someone who is famous, even though I got a list of those folks. But I would want to interview somebody like my grandmother's grandmother. Like, it's going down the line somewhere. So I want to interview one of them.
That's a great answer.
Interesting answer.
Yeah.
I want to know. I remember one time Brittany, Uncle Brooke and we did an episode. I think one of the questions was something about would you want to see your great-grandchildren or would you want to go back and meet your ancestors? And it's like, look, I want to go back and meet my ancestors as long as they know I'm only here for a short while and a good time. Let me sit on the porch and get a little cup of lemonade and then let me just go back real quick. I'll be back maybe next weekend, but I ain't staying. Especially not after dark. So let me just go get this little chit chat, ask a couple questions, and let me just go about my business. So no, I think I would want to interview one of my ancestors.
I think all of those points are very valid.
Yeah.
What is some of the worst advice you've ever received?
Oh. So on the business side, some of the worst advice I've ever received is because everybody in business has different stuff that they tell you to do. Because everybody wants to be an expert at things. And everybody always wants to put off on you what worked for them. And that doesn't always work for everyone. And I think for the business side, one of the worst pieces of advice that was ever given to me is that because I was a new business, that I didn't need to have a website. And I think for my type of business, that's been very invaluable for me. So that was probably one of the worst pieces of advice. On the personal side, and this might be key, but I was told that I needed to stay with my ex-husband. And I was like, no, because, divorce was not right in the eyes of God. And so that was some of the worst advice on the personal side. So yeah.
That's a good answer. What are your dinner plans tonight?
I made tacos last night, so it was leftovers.
Leftover tacos are like,
It's the best.
that's like one of my favorite things in life. Okay. What is the most recent podcast you listened to?
I haven't listened to any this week because my podcast listening happens when I'm commuting to work. So I think I listened to the latest episode of Launch Your Box, and then the latest episode of Cindy's podcast. I'm like catching up with all of my my podcasts.
What is your best tip for marriage or relationships?
Face.
Marriage is hard. Marriage is hard. It is a job all in itself. And this is my second go round, but it's the best go round for me. I will say that. It takes work. You have to work at it, and you have to intentionally work at it, because it's not what you see on Instagram. It's not you pick this card, oh, let's do this. It's not those games. That's
very true.
It's not that. It's about communication. It's about trust. It's about, intentionally working through the ugly times, even when you want to walk away. It's one of those jobs that you don't give up on. You don't put in your 2-week notice, because you don't have another job to go to after that. You work it out. If the person is showing up for you the same way you're showing up for that person.
It's a good answer. I know so many people that need to hear that sometimes. Marriage it's work, it's a job, and it is a job in itself.
It is.
And you being intentional.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I have to ask you this one. This was also on my short list of I cannot wait to ask you this question. If you could donate $100,000 to any cause or charitable organization, where would you donate it?
Whoa. I have to donate all of it to one?
I mean, since it's fictional money, you can do whatever you want.
I told you, I always got questions.
I appreciate you wanting clarity. Make sure that you're getting all the options.
I would give $50,000 to the Lupus Foundation. And I would give the other 50 to the National Organization of Human Services, because I just don't think, and they are a nonprofit organization, but I think, Sarah, you and I had this conversation a lot. Like, social workers get so much attention. They have it's National Social Work Month, but human services, they do not get that same recognition. And I think that there is more that needs to be done in recognizing this profession. We go through the same years of college, the same training, the same licensure, all of the same stuff, but are not often recognized for the work that is being done. And still experiencing burnout at really high rates, still are not staying in the field for as long. There is still not longevity because of burnout, because of these things. So I would split my money down the middle and get 50-50.
That's a great answer. I have a question for you that's not on our list.
Okay.
If you're someone who doesn't know, what is the difference between human services and
social work?
That's the one. What are the difference between those two?
And see, then that's the thing. There isn't much difference. There isn't a lot of difference between the two. There are some of the same. So like with social work, you have the micro, macro, meso, and those are the 3 tracks. And one is client-centered, one focuses on groups, and one, focuses on the systems itself and policy and stuff. But that stuff can still be translated into what human service professionals do. Human service professionals still provide micro work. We still do client-centered work. We still do policy level work. We still do community level work. It's the same exact disciplines across the board. What there are distinct differences in licensure. So for social workers, you could become a licensed clinical social worker, But for a human service professional, you can get your degree in human services. You could take a clinical counseling route. And instead of becoming a licensed clinical social worker, you could become a licensed clinical professional counselor. You still have to sit for state board. You still have to have a master's degree. You still have to have the same licensure. I think for human services, but for social work, you can still work in environments like drug treatment programs and rehabilitation centers. So it's still some of the same work. It still overlaps. Why it's not treated the same, I'm not even sure.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. I was very curious about that. Well, guess what? You did it.
I loved this. Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem.
And if you are watching this, thank you for joining all three of us. And you can catch new videos right here every Wednesday. So like, subscribe, hit the bell.
Ring
We're
the
working
bell.
on our YouTube calls to action. Ring the bell, and then you get notified about new videos, which come out every Wednesday. But our podcast is Tuesdays, and it's totally separate content. So catch us in both places, and